Discover the incredible hidden fortune revealed on my ranch, a life-changing gift from my brother. Joe felt the weight of the sun on his shoulders as he rose with it each morning. The ranch, stretching wide under the endless Texas sky, had been in his family for generations, a piece of history that had been cultivated with sweat and tears. But ever since his father's sudden passing, that land felt heavy, the burden of upkeep and mounting bills pressing down on him like the summer heat. The once vibrant and lively evenings spent with his wife, Sarah, and their 2 children had turned into strained silence, punctuated only by the clinking of forks against plates. He could see it in their eyes. His children, once radiant with laughter, now wore a shield of worry, and Sarah's smile had faded into something more like a polite acknowledgement of their shared sadness. He missed the closeness they had, but how could he bridge that distance when the clouds of financial struggle loomed over them, casting a shadow over their hearts? The townsfolk admired him. They whispered respect for his grit and his service as a veteran, but admiration felt hollow in the face of their own economic hardships. Old friends would pass by, offering hollow reassurances, while the conversations always returned to the specter of inequality that loomed like an uninvited guest. With every meal shared, Joe could feel the invisible wall growing thicker, an unbroken silence that left them feeling more like strangers than family. Then came Tom, Joe's brother, clad in sharp suits with confidence that gleamed like polished metal, rolled back into town. The reunion was electric, charged with unresolved resentment and the pulse of old wounds. Their paths had diverged long ago. Joe, the steadfast rancher, while Tom chased dreams in the city, but the air crackled with contention as they faced each other once more. Their childhood memories tangled with arguments, each embodying the values they had adopted. As the days turned into tension-filled nights, the brothers stood at odds. Joe's honesty and tireless work ethic clashed with Tom's ambitious aspirations. Their arguments echoed throughout the ranch, turning once peaceful days into battlegrounds. Each heated exchange ripped further at the fraying fabric of their family, the emotional distance stretching with every bitter word. One evening, as Joe worked to fix a fence in a forgotten corner of the property, he stumbled upon an old rusted box buried beneath the earth. The thrill that coursed through him was unexplainable, and he pried it open, his heart racing. Inside lay letters, photographs, and a map, relics of a time long past, each item telling a story of their family's rich history. Memories flooded his mind like a river, and he realized this hidden treasure was not about wealth but about the love and legacy left behind, giving him hope in the face of despair. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But as excitement bubbled within him, so did the tension with Tom. This treasure had the potential to deepen their divide. Joe faced a moral dilemma. Would he choose material gain or the bond that had weathered a lifetime of storms? In a moment of confrontation, both brothers laid bare their fears, dreams, and painful pasts. The air grew thick with unspoken doubts, each man grappling with his choices. As the night loomed heavy with unresolved tension, Joe found himself staring into the darkness, reflecting on the weight of the ranch, of their relationship, and what they could still salvage. Would they rise above their struggles, or would the burdens of the past continue to splinter what remained of their family? He didn't know, but one thing was clear: the heart of the ranch and the future of their bond hung precariously in the balance. The next morning broke with an uneasy silence. The sun filtered through the window, casting a gentle glow on the ranch kitchen where Joe sat, staring at the untouched breakfast on the table. Sarah moved quietly, lost in her thoughts, her fingers absent-mindedly playing with a fork. The kids, usually full of energy, sat slumped in their chairs, the weight of worry clinging to them like a heavy fog. "Are we going to talk about it?" Sarah finally broke the silence, her voice barely above a whisper. Her eyes met Joe's, searching for the familiar spark that had once defined their relationship. Instead, she found a man burdened by the weight of his father's legacy, his brother's expectations, and the specter of financial ruin that loomed over them all. Joe sighed, nodding slowly. "I found something yesterday," he said, his mind racing to piece together the map and letters he had come across. A part of him wanted to share the discovery, to bridge the gap between him and Tom, but part of him felt it would only drive them further apart. "Something good?" she asked with a hint of hope. "Maybe." He hesitated. "But it's complicated. It might change everything." He could sense the tension in Sarah's shoulders as she stood there, waiting. With great effort, he reached for his phone and pulled up the old map. "I think there's south more to this place, something around the old well," he said, excitement creeping back into his voice. "These letters. I think they tell a story about our family, about why we fought so hard to keep this ranch." Sarah took a deep breath, her eyes lighting up with cautious optimism. "So, we're going to uncover more? More about Dad and life here?" Joe nodded, determination flaring within him. "Yeah, I want the kids to know their roots. We'll fix what's broken." As they shared this moment of resolve, the sound of footsteps interrupted them. The kids stood at the doorway, eyes wide and curious. "What are you guys talking about?" his son asked, sensing the shift in the air. Joe smiled at their innocent inquiries, but felt the weight of truth pressing down again. He needed his family to understand what lay before them. "We're planning a treasure hunt today," he said, his heart racing with excitement. "We might find something special." The kids exchanged gleeful glances, an enthusiastic ball of energy shooting into the room. "Can we come?" his daughter pleaded, her cheeks flushed with life. "Of course," Sarah chimed in, a new spark rekindling in her eyes as she joined Joe's enthusiasm. "Let us go together. This could be the start of something great." The four of them piled into the old truck, laughter and anticipation mingling in the air. But as they drove down the winding dirt roads of the ranch, Joe couldn't shake the nagging thought of Tom. How would his brother fit into this newfound journey? They were on the brink of a revelation, and yet the tension still hung like a dark cloud overhead. When they arrived at the well, Joe felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. The structure appeared ancient, overgrown with vines and weeds. He could feel the family's history beneath its stones, but what else lurked in the shadows? "Let us dig," his son shouted, enthusiasm infectious. They began clearing away the debris together, Joe leading the charge while watching his children work with earnest joy. But the moment he unearthed a small metal box, his heart skipped a beat. "Look," he shouted, pulling it free from the ground, excitement bubbling within him. This was it, the moment where everything could change. He remembered the words from the letters he'd read: "The wealth of the land is not just in what it gives, but in what it teaches." What would this box contain? With shaking hands, he opened the lid. The family gathered around him, breaths held in suspense. But just as he began to lift out the first item, he heard a rustling in the distance. The unmistakable sound of approaching footsteps. Joe's heart sank, and his stomach tightened. Was it Tom? Would he come to challenge the peace they'd just begun to restore, or could this genuinely be the catalyst for healing their brotherhood? Joe looked at the box, then at his family, and took a deep breath. Everything was about to change. Joe's pulse quickened as the footsteps grew closer, the tension thick enough to slice through. He clenched the metal box tighter, eyes darting to Sarah, who wore a mask of confusion mixed with excitement. The kids stood at his sides, oblivious to the storm brewing just behind them. "Who is coming?" his son whispered, voice trembling slightly, but filled with an innocent curiosity. "I don't know," Joe replied, trying to sound reassuring. The rustling grew louder, and suddenly a figure appeared out of the swaying grass. Tom. For a split second, time stood still. The air was heavy, crackling with unspoken words. Tom's expression was unreadable as he approached, hands tucked in his pockets, a frown etched on his brow. The sight of his brother brought back all the lingering frustrations Joe had harbored, yet he couldn't deny the flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, this could be a turning point. "What are you doing here?" Joe asked, his voice steady but edged with a cautious tone. I saw your truck. Thought I'd drop by. Heard some digging. Tom glanced at the metal box in Joe's hands, then shifted his gaze to the kids, who were trying to peek over Joe's shoulder. Dad found something. His daughter exclaimed, bubbling over with enthusiasm. A treasure. Treasure? Let me guess, more old junk? Tom scoffed, folding his arms across his chest. But Joe, filled with defiance, saw a chance to pull Tom into the moment rather than let him dismiss it. It's more than just junk, Tom. Joe lifted the box slightly. This has been buried for decades. We're about to find out why it was hidden. Yeah, right? Tom stepped closer, skepticism dancing on his features. Yet when he caught a glimpse of the anticipation brimming in their kids' eyes, he hesitated. Beneath the layers of tension, Joe sensed a hint of curiosity that might just crack open Tom's thick shell. Why don't you help us? Joe offered, as the idea formed in his mind. This could be what we need to finally understand this ranch. Dad's dreams, everything. Tom's reluctance was palpable, but Joe pressed further. We can figure out our future together. Help us unlock this. It's not just about Dad anymore. Tom's gaze shifted from Joe to the kids, who were brimming with hope. The moment hung in the air, a fragile, beautiful moment that could either resolve their differences or deepen the divide. With a reluctant sigh, Tom nodded. All right, let us see what you found. As they leaned in closer, Joe revealed the contents of the box. Inside lay old photographs, brittle letters tied with faded twine, and trinkets that spoke of another era. The kids gasped, excitement bubbling over like a fresh boil. Whoa! His son exclaimed, pulling out an old pocket watch, its surface dim but sturdy, bearing the initials of a person long gone. Joe felt the rush of memories of family gatherings, of laughter around the fire, of resilience in hard times. He glanced at Tom to see his reaction. Confusion intermingled with intrigue danced across Tom's face as he lifted one of the photographs, revealing their father in a younger, happier time. What the hell is this? Tom whispered, staring intently at the picture. Stories, Joe replied, his voice barely a murmur. Stories we didn't know, or maybe chose to forget. The rustling winds cascaded around them, wrapping all four of them in a bubble of possibility. Joe could see it. Tom was letting the walls down, even ever so slightly. What else is in there? Tom asked, a new spark igniting in his eyes. As Joe was about to respond, the soft echo of laughter caught their attention. A faded laugh from the past whispered through the air, pulling them closer to a connection they had both missed for too long. But just as the moment felt ripe with promise, the ground seemed to tremble beneath them. Was it the past shaking things up, or were they running towards something far more significant? Joe's heart raced. What if all this leads to something even bigger, he thought quietly. Suddenly, a realization struck him: this wasn't just a treasure hunt. It was a life-changing journey waiting to unfold. But what else lay hidden in the corners of their family's past? A mix of dread and hope churned inside him as he faced Tom, a brother he thought he could never reconcile with. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting shadows over the well and their hearts, Joe knew one thing. Their adventure had only just begun, and with it came questions that could either bind or break them. What other secrets were buried on the ranch, waiting to be unearthed? Joe's heart thumped loudly in his chest as Tom held the faded photograph, eyes narrowing in concentration. The laughter from their past echoed in Joe's mind, a bittersweet nostalgia he hadn't felt in years. The shadows stretched longer, creeping toward them, but all he could see was the flicker of understanding starting to dance in Tom's gaze. Look at Dad here, Tom said, a rare softness washing over his voice. He gestured at the picture, tracing the outline of their father's youthful face with trembling fingers. He was so happy. Yes. Joe managed a nod, feeling a lump in his throat. This is who he was before everything changed. The kids crowded closer, their small bodies pressing against Joe like a shield against the uncertainty swirling in the air. His son held onto the pocket watch, its cool metal glinting in the dying light. What else is in there? His daughter asked, eyes wide, full of youthful exuberance. It was the kind of innocent curiosity that could soften even the hardest of hearts. Joe felt the tension ease slightly, like a breath finally released. Let us see. He began to sift through the contents of the box, revealing more photographs. Each one was a portal to the past, a family camping trip, a birthday celebration, and moments that felt both familiar and like strangers. "Is that Grandma?" his daughter exclaimed, pointing at a woman jovially holding a plate of cake. "Yeah," Tom said, glancing at the photo with a flicker of recognition. "That must be been last Christmas before." His voice trailed off, heavy with unspoken loss. Without thinking, Joe reached out a hand, placing it on Tom's shoulder. "We can remember her together, Tom. The good times." Tom blinked and then looked at Joe. Something unguarded flickered behind his eyes, and for a heartbeat, they were merely brothers from shared memories rather than adversaries caught in a web of past grievances. As they uncovered more letters, Joe noticed the change in the atmosphere. The sun dipped lower, bathing them in an orange glow, and for the first time in a long while, the air felt less stifling. But then, a chill crept up his spine as one letter, yellowed and crinkled, caught his attention, the edges frail and fraught with stories waiting to be told. "What is that one?" Sarah asked, pointing to it. "Let us find out," Joe said, pulling it gently from the box. He could see it was addressed to their father, in handwriting that seemed to bleed emotion on the page. Joe opened the letter slowly, his heart drumming in his ears as he scanned the ink. There was something raw about the words, feelings he hadn't known their father shared. As he read aloud, the words felt heavy and sweet all at once, regrets, hopes, and dreams that had never seen the light of day. "I know I failed you, and for that, I am truly sorry. But there is something I must tell you," Joe read, each word punctuated by a growing weight in his chest. Tom's eyes widened, and he leaned closer. What did he mean? What could he have meant? "I think he was trying to reconnect," Joe replied, his voice tightening. They had both been chasing shadows, refusing to see the whole picture. Beneath the layers of resentment and hurt, their father had left behind an olive branch, a chance for them to mend what was broken. "Maybe this was meant to bring us back together," Tom said, almost to himself. But Joe's mind raced at the implications of the revelation. Their father hadn't just left memories, he had hidden pieces of himself, pieces meant to reunite a family that had splintered apart. As the last rays of sunlight faded, Joe and Tom stood in a fragile bubble of understanding, the weight of their shared past clinging to the air around them. "What if this is just the beginning?" Joe asked, the implications heavy in his heart. Tom looked at him, his expression unreadable but filled with new determination. "Then let us find out, together." There was still so much to uncover. The cliff loomed before them, deep and shadowed, but the path felt less daunting now, guided by worn memories, lost stories, and the promise of reconciliation. What else would they uncover about their family and, more importantly, about themselves? Each turn of the page held the potential for healing, and the adventure ahead seemed both daunting and exhilarating. Would the truth shatter them or bring them closer together? The air thickened with a mix of anticipation and trepidation as Joe turned the letter over in his hands. He could feel the weight of history wrapped around it, tethering them to a past they had both avoided for too long. The moment felt electric, the kind that made you want to hold your breath and soak it all in. "What else does it say?" Tom urged, his voice a blend of curiosity and hope. Joe glanced at his brother, feeling that flicker of kinship struggling to break the surface of their complicated relationship. It was hopeful, yet tentative, as if either of them could flinch and ruin the moment. "I'm not sure yet." "Let us see," Joe replied, unfolding the damp paper with the care of a firefighter peeling back a layer of a charred building. He traced the faded ink with his fingers as he read the next line aloud. "You deserve to know the truth, even if it is difficult to confront. I've kept secrets, but it's time for them to come to light." Tom's brow furrowed. "What secrets? What did he do?" "That's what we're about to find out," Joe said, trying to mask the rising tension that knotted in his stomach. The light from the setting sun filtered through the trees, creating shadows that danced around them, wrapping them in a golden embrace. Joe scanned the next few lines, his mind racing to make sense of the next revelation waiting to unfold. There were whispers of an old family disagreement, hints of dreams abandoned, and then came a name that sent a shiver down Joe's spine. I hope you can forgive me for what I've kept from you both about your mother's family. He couldn't get the next words out. What could their mother's family possibly have to do with anything? What about Mom? Tom interrupted, his voice cracking. The unease was palpable, each of them feeling more vulnerable than before. Joe swallowed hard. It says there's more to our family history than we knew. People we never met. Relationships never formed. His daughter's quick intake of breath broke through the tension. Is it supposed to be a surprise? Like a family reunion? Maybe so, Joe said, sparking a glint of excitement in Sarah's eyes. But deep inside, uneasiness stirred. Was this just going to dig up more past wounds? Keep reading, Tom urged, leaning forward as if the words could somehow pull them together. Joe felt him there, his brother. Through the aches of the past, the newfound expectation felt like something brightening in the distance, a flicker in the dark. And what I buried along with those connections, Joe continued, was a forgotten fortune, untouched, waiting for you both. Time froze. The words hung in the air like a dropped stone in a still pond, sending ripples of confusion and intrigue. Joe could feel every heart in the small group quicken. What kind of fortune? Tom asked, dread seemingly eclipsing hope. I don't know, Joe exclaimed, shaking his head in disbelief. It could be anything, money, property, or something more valuable. The moment stretched, trapped in a fragile web of curiosity and fear. Are we doing this? Are we actually going to dig into our family's past? Yes, we have to, Tom said, his voice a mixture of resolve and trepidation. The shadow of their father's secrets loomed like a storm cloud, dark and foreboding, but the lure of unraveling those secrets sparked a flicker of light. Then let us take that first step, Joe said, glancing at his kids, whose innocent excitement seemed to cut through the heaviness. As they gathered themselves, poised to begin what felt like a quest for truth, Joe couldn't shake the nagging doubt twisting in his gut. Would they find treasure? Or would they unearth remnants of pain that had lingered far too long? He turned the letter over once more, hoping for clarity. But instead, he found more questions staring back at him. Whatever it is, it's time to face it. Are we ready? With tender resolve, Tom nodded. Together, they took a step towards the unknown. But as they began their journey, his father's words echoed in Joe's mind. I hope you can forgive me. What would they unearth from their past, and would it be a story of reconciliation or a reminder of everything that had been lost? As the dusk faded into night, only one thing was certain: their lives would never be the same again. The chill of the evening air wrapped around them, whispering promises and secrets yet to be revealed. Each step felt heavy as they walked back towards the house, the weight of the letter pressing on Joe's mind like an unwanted reminder. It took every ounce of courage not to turn away from the path they were about to take. What if the fortune isn't what we think? Sarah's voice broke the silence. Her wide eyes reflected both excitement and anxiety, a mirror of feelings that danced in Joe's chest. Yeah, what if it's just— Tom trailed off, the words hanging unfinished. What if it's just a story? Joe finished for him, the fear creeping in again. What if it's not real? Silence descended, heavy and thick. Joe felt an urge to reassure them, to wrap his arms around his kids and tell them everything would be okay, but how could he promise that? They were stepping into a darkness that had plagued their family for generations, and whatever they discovered could just as easily tear them apart as it could bring them closer. Let us not think that way, he finally said, trying to mask the tremor in his voice. We're looking for answers, and whatever they are, we'll face them together. They approached the small farmhouse that had been home for so many years, the warm glow of light from inside spilling into the porch. Joe paused, taking a deep breath. Let us all sit down with this letter. It has all the clues. We need to figure out our next move. Once inside, they settled around the dining table, the letter laid out like a tariff of the past. Joe's heart beat loudly in his chest as he recalled the words, bearing the burden of decisions made long before they arrived. Okay, Joe said, looking at Tom and Sarah, let us break this down. What do we know so far? Tom pointed to the letter. It said there are connections we don't know about. Mom's family, we need to find out who they are. Yeah, Sarah added, her brows knitting together in concentration. And if there's that fortune, we should figure out where it is. Right, Joe nodded. But we also need to prepare ourselves for whatever that may mean. What if it's tied up in some family mess we don't know about? The fear veiled their excitement, and it felt like trying to build a bridge with broken planks. Joe could see it, his children's eyes flicking between hope and dread, the balance so precarious that a gust of wind could topple it all over. What if we start with Mama's family? Tom suggested, his voice steadying with purpose. We could dig through some old records, maybe find names, addresses. Good idea, Joe said, encouraged by the newfound resolve in his brother's tone. We should look at her old letters and pictures. There might be more clues there. The kids brightened at the thought, the prospect of discovery igniting a spark in them. As they discussed plans, excitement weaved through their conversation like a thread binding them together. But just as they began to feel the warmth of connection, a sharp realization struck Joe like a cold wave. This letter, it mentioned buried secrets, right? What if those secrets are dangerous? He could almost feel the sudden chill in the air around them as Tom and Sarah exchanged glances of worry. The group fell quiet, the weight of untold histories pressing down once more. Where there was family, there was often pain, buried deep beneath smiles and laughter. But there was also the potential for healing if only they were brave enough to continue. Let's just take it one step at a time, Joe said, desperation creeping into his voice. We have to trust that together we can handle whatever comes next. The evening passed in a blur of strategizing, casting shadows against the walls as they plotted their course. In that moment, they became a team, working toward uncovering what had been kept hidden. But as each passing hour unfolded, Joe couldn't shake the feeling that what waited for them on the other side of revelation might change everything. What if the roots of their family tree contained thorns? He glanced at the letter again, its contents echoing in his mind. Somehow he couldn't shake the feeling that understanding the truth would demand as much from them as it promised to give. Would they be ready to confront the past when it finally came knocking? As the first stars pricked the evening sky, a question lingered in the air. What price would they pay for the truth? The morning sun sliced through the haze of night, casting golden ribbons across the little farmhouse. Joe woke before his kids, consumed by a restless urgency. The letter lay on the table, stark against the dark wood, as if it were demanding to be talked about. He needed time to organize his thoughts, to prepare himself for whatever the day held. Once he was up and dressed, he tiptoed into the kitchen, where the familiar ritual of brewing coffee wrapped him in a comforting embrace. As the rich aroma filled the air, he replayed the conversation from last night in his mind. What would they find if they dove into their mother's past? Would it be jewels and wealth or skeletons and dark secrets? Morning. Sarah's voice broke through his reverie. She stumbled into the kitchen, hair tousled, and eyes still heavy with sleep. Morning, kiddo, Joe replied, forcing a smile. How did you sleep? Okay, I guess. She poured herself a glass of orange juice and leaned against the counter, still watching him carefully. You too? Just thinking about today, he admitted, meeting her gaze. About what we might learn. He could almost see the wheels turning in her brain. What if we find something bad? There's a chance, Joe said slowly. But there's also a chance we might find out Mom had some incredible stories too. Tom wandered into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes and stretching. What's going on? Just talking about the letter, Sarah chimed in. Yeah, I'm excited but nervous too, Tom confessed. He slumped onto a kitchen chair, staring at the table, where the mysterious letter still sat. It feels like we're about to open Pandora's box. Joe took a deep breath. We just have to remember that whatever we uncover, we'll face it together. Family means sticking together through thick and thin. As they sipped their drinks, a sense of camaraderie bloomed. They were more than just siblings, they were united in purpose. It was a fragile bond they were newly forging, but it gave each of them strength. After breakfast, they gathered around the dining table again, determination now edging out their earlier fears. Joe unfolded the letter, a soft rasp cutting through the stillness. All right, let us map this out. The first destination is Mom's hometown, Greenwood. We might find birth records, or maybe someone who remembers her family. Do you think anyone will talk to us? Sarah asked, a mixture of hope and skepticism in her voice. Why wouldn't they? Tom replied. Maybe they have stories about our mom we have never heard. People love to share their past. The feeling was infectious, and they began to make a plan. Tom would research local archives, while Sarah and Joe would sift through their mother's belongings for clues. The longer they spoke, the more tangible the prospect of uncovering the family's secrets became. Hey, Joe hesitated. What if we find out we don't have a fortune at all? What if it's just a wild goose chase? Tom chewed on his lip, his brow furrowing in thought. Then we'll find something else. Maybe just the truth about Mom. Yeah, Joe agreed. And sometimes the truth is more valuable than gold. After mapping out their tasks, they packed a small bag of necessities, notebooks, a camera, and some snacks essentials for a day of exploration. As they set out in the car, Joe felt a flicker of hope battling with his worry. What would they discover? And was their mother's past a burden or a treasure? The sun warmed their backs as they drove, illuminating the road ahead and filling the car with its glow, but just as the familiar streets fell away and the landscape opened up into rolling fields, Joe's phone buzzed violently in his pocket. A message popped up, bright and urgent on the screen. Joe, you need to call me as soon as possible. It's about your mom. In that moment, the world outside the car held its breath. What could it mean? Joe turned to his kids, the unease twisting in his gut. They were stepping closer to answers, but with each passing mile, the weight of uncertainty only intensified. Everything okay? Sarah asked, sensing his sudden stillness. Not sure, he muttered, blinking at the screen. But I think we should prepare ourselves. Because soon, we might just find out more than we bargained for. Joe's heart raced. He felt the familiar twinges of anxiety clawing at his insides. The road stretched endlessly before them, but all he could focus on were the words in that message. He hated the thought of keeping secrets from his kids, but this was too big. Let us pull over, he said, his voice steadier than he felt. He found a quiet spot beside the road, where tall grass swayed gently under the sun. The kids exchanged concerned glances as Joe parked. What's going on, Dad? Tom asked, his tone laced with worry. Joe glanced back at his phone, then at their eager faces. I just got a message, a really important one. He took a deep breath. It's about your mom. I think there's something we need to know. Like what? Sarah pressed, her curiosity piqued but overshadowed by concern. Someone wants me to call them. It might have something to do with, well, everything we're looking for. It could be about her past and our family history. Silence hung in the car, thick and heavy. The gravity of the moment pressed down on them. Should you call them now? Tom asked, biting his lip as if trying to suppress his anxiety. Yeah, I think I should. Joe nodded, feeling a heat rise in his chest. But it's not just a casual chat. This could change everything. As he reached for the phone, Sarah put a hand on his arm. Dad, whatever it is, good or bad, we can handle it together. Right? Just like we talked about. Her words wrapped around him like a warm blanket. Joe could see the determination in her eyes, and it bolstered his resolve. You're right. Okay. He pressed the call button, the phone buzzing softly against his ear. After a few rings, a voice he recognized but hadn't heard in years filled the air. Joe? Is that you? Yeah, it's me, Clara. Joe's voice wavered. Clara was his mother's sister, the only family member he'd lost touch with after her passing. I got your message. What's going on? Oh, Joe, I wish I could have reached out earlier, but it's complicated. Clara's voice cracked slightly, tinging her words with urgency. There's some information about your mom that I need you to know. It's about her past, and it affects you and your siblings. The weight of her words sunk in. Joe could see Tom and Sarah straining to hear. He looked at them, then back at the phone. I'm listening. Your mother was hiding a lot from you. There's a fortune, and a secret. One that she thought would be better left buried. Joe felt ice cold travel up his spine. What do you mean a fortune? What kind of secret? Clara hesitated, and Joe's heart raced faster. You need to come to Greenwood. There are things here, things I can't explain over the phone. But you all have to be together for this. Okay, he breathed. We'll come. Just tell me what we need to do. Just be careful, Joe. Not everything is what it seems. Your mother wasn't just running from her past, she was protecting you. Joe's breath caught in his throat. Protecting them? From what? He glanced at Tom and Sarah, anxiety mirrored in their expressions. Wait. Clara, don't hang up, Joe blurted. What do we do next? What is this all about? But the line went dead, the call cutting off abruptly. Joe's heart thundered in his chest, panic rising. He glanced at his kids, who looked more confused than ever. What did she say? Tom demanded, words rushing out. I don't know yet, Joe replied, swallowing hard. But we have to go to Greenwood. Now? Sarah asked, eyes wide. Why? What is waiting for us there? I don't know, Joe admitted, the uncertainty gnawing at his insides. But we're about to uncover something that could change everything. As they sat in the car, reality hit hard. They were driving into the unknown, not just seeking answers, but stepping into a world filled with shadows of their mother's hidden life. They didn't just have the letter this time. They had a promise of discovery, a strange mix of fear and anticipation swirling around them. Joe started the engine, the rumble of the car echoing his frustration and determination. They had to find out the truth. What secrets lay hidden away, waiting for them in Greenwood? The tires rolled over the gravel road, and the sound echoed in the car, amplifying the tension brewing inside. Joe's fingers gripped the steering wheel tightly, the knuckles turning pale. He glanced in the rearview mirror, catching a glimpse of Tom's furrowed brow and Sarah's biting her lip. Dad, are you okay? Tom finally asked, breaking the heavy silence. Joe took a deep breath, trying to steady his own racing heart. I will be, buddy. Just need to focus on getting there. The world outside blurred as they drove further from their familiarity and into the unknown. Pine trees whipped past like tall sentinels, their green needles a stark contrast to the storm brewing in his chest. Their home felt miles away, and in this moment, he couldn't shake the feeling of stepping into a story that was larger than he ever expected. What if Clara's right? Sarah interjected, her voice a mixture of hope and fear. What if there really is something huge we don't know? Joe turned to her, his heart squeezing at the thought of her bright eyes clouded with worry. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. We've got each other, remember? Yeah, Tom muttered, though his voice wavered. But what if it's dangerous? What if it's something bad? I don't think Clara would lead us into something harmful, Joe tried to reassure him, though doubts lingered in his mind. He wanted to believe that, but the unknown felt vast and dark, ready to swallow them whole. When they finally entered Greenwood, familiar sights poked through the dense fog of unease. It was the town where his mother grew up, a place of childhood memories mixed with the bittersweet essence of loss. Idyllic street corners, the old diner with its faded sign, and the park where they spent summer afternoons all wrapped around the aura of comfort and dread. As they approached Clara's house, a small, weather-beaten cottage surrounded by wildflowers, Joe's heartbeat quickened. Would answers bloom like those flowers from the soil of secrets? He parked the car and looked at his kids, who were now both wide-eyed, anticipation and fear battling for dominance. Let us just make this quick, Joe suggested. We knock, we go in, and we get whatever information we can. Together? Sarah asked, her confidence rising a bit. Together, Joe affirmed. They stepped out, their feet crunching on the gravel as they made their way to the front door. After a quick rap on the door, Clara appeared, a mixture of worry and relief flooding her face. Oh, thank goodness you're here. I've been waiting. Is it really safe to talk here? Joe asked, glancing around. Clara ushered them inside, and as the door clicked shut, he felt the walls closing in. The small living room was cluttered but warm, filled with the scent of freshly brewed coffee and old books. We need to sit. There's so much we have to go over. They settled onto worn-out chairs, Clara's eyes darting between them, her expression a mix of fear and urgency. You have to understand, what I'm going to tell you, it's not just about your mom. It's about your legacy. Joe's stomach lurched. What kind of legacy? Clara leaned in closer, lowering her voice as if the walls themselves could betray secrets. Your mother left behind a fortune, Joe. But it's more complicated than that. She made choices to protect you. Joe's heart raced again, flooding him with questions. What choices? What did she hide? Believe me, you're not ready for all of this. But once we start uncovering the truth, there won't be any turning back, Clara warned, her eyes locking onto his with an intensity that set him on edge. Tom and Sarah exchanged glances, their expressions mirroring Joe's internal chaos. Mom was protecting us? What from? Tom asked, frustration rising. So many questions tangled in the air, and all Joe could do was nod. Clara, please tell us. As Clara opened her mouth to respond, the sudden ring of a cell phone echoed through the room like a thunderclap, cutting through the fragile tension. Clara's eyes widened, a mix of recognition and dread washing over her face. Who could that be? Joe asked, anxiety twisting in his gut. Not now, Clara whispered, her words fraught with implications. What awaited them on the other side of truths and secrets? And who could be reaching out now as the story was about to unfold? As Clara's phone rang incessantly, the heavy silence in the room shattered like glass. Joe could almost feel the tension suffocating him. The walls seemed to close in, echoing their uncertainty. Clara's mouth snapped shut, a fleeting vulnerability flitting across her face. Do you want to get that? Joe urged, his heart pounding with both anticipation and dread. But Clara shook her head, her eyes wide. No. It's better if we focus on this, on you and your family. But what if it's important? Tom pressed. I can't risk it, she replied, her tone firm yet taut with fear. You have to understand, there are forces at work here that you don't know about. For a moment, the two worlds clashed, the future they were trying to carve out together, and the past that clung to them like a stubborn shadow. What are you talking about? Joe demanded, feeling the walls closing in. Clara took a deep breath, brushing a hand through her hair. Your mother was involved in something much bigger than any of us understood. Secrets that, if revealed, could upset more than just our family's legacy. Then tell us, Joe said, his voice rising slightly, his frustration boiling over. What was she hiding? What do we need to be prepared for? Clara finally relented, leaning closer to the table as if the very act of speaking these words could conjure ghosts. Your mother came from money, Joe. Old money. They wanted her to marry into wealth, but she refused. She chose love instead. That decision left old wounds and enemies. Enemies? Sarah echoed, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes, Clara affirmed. And that fortune. It's not just about riches. It's tied to your mother's family and their past decisions. They kept it buried to protect her, to protect you. Joe felt a chill creep down his spine, mingling dread with a burgeoning curiosity. The pieces of a puzzle he didn't know existed began to reform in his mind. So, what do we do now? Now is when it gets complicated, Clara said softly. You need to decide if you want to follow this path. Unearthing the past could put you at odds with those who wish it to stay buried. Trepidation twisted in Joe's gut, but hope flickered faintly in the dark. We can't turn back now. Not after everything we've uncovered. What if we're not ready for what's coming? Tom whispered, a flicker of fear in his eyes. Clara finally answered, her voice gentle but filled with the weight of the world. You might not be, but you will have to be. The truth changes everything. Just then, the ringtone stopped abruptly. Clara's phone lay there, the screen lighting up momentarily before dimming once more, leaving only an eerie silence. The moment hung, and Joe's heart raced as he felt the urgency creeping into his bones. We need to see this through. If there is something out there that could help us understand who we are, how can we walk away? Together, Sarah said, her voice a soft yet strong anchor amid the brewing storm. Yes, together, Joe echoed, glancing between his sister and Clara. Let us find out what we're truly made of. We've come too far to turn back now. Clara gave a small nod, resolve settling across her features. This was going to be hard, an uphill battle stretching into the unknown. But the air crackled with a sense of unity. They were more than just a family. They were warriors ready to reclaim their story. As they sifted through their mother's belongings, hope and fear swirled in tandem like paints on a canvas, creating a new picture. Layers of history peeled away, revealing the lives intertwined, stories waiting to be told. With every shared memory, laughter spilled into the space, mingling with the weight of secrets, and deeper still, the promise of healing began to take shape. The journey ahead would not be easy, but it held the power to transform them, to repair what had been broken. When they stepped outside to face the bright sun, a sense of renewed purpose ignited within them. Joe felt lighter, resolute. This journey would uncover what had been hidden, but it would also mold them into the family they were meant to be. Side by side, they took their first step into the chapter of their lives that would define them. As they walked into Greenwood, a bold determination filled the air. Nothing could stand in their way, not the ghosts of the past or the uncertainty of the future. Together, they would unlock their history and carve out the legacy they were destined to reclaim. And there it was, a new dawn breaking as they embraced the adventure before them, hearts beating in sync with the promise of new beginnings. But all of this journey towards transformation and healing, needs your support. You need to subscribe now to catch every part of this incredible story. This is the moment to show your support for our journey and ensure you don't miss the next exclusive updates. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm so we can share more powerful stories like this. And please, comment your thoughts and feelings about this thrilling ending. Your voice matters. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this transformation too. Let us spread the word and embrace our own narratives together.